Welcome back to Red and Blue. The U.S. is urging Russia to release Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. He was detained last week on espionage allegations. Secretary of State Antony Blinken spoke about his detention during a meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Brussels on Wednesday.
In my own mind, there's no doubt that he's being wrongfully detained by Russia, which is exactly what I said to Foreign Minister Lavrov when I spoke to him over the weekend, and insisted that Evan be released immediately. But I want to make sure that, as always, because there is a formal process, that we go through it, and we will.
CBS News chief foreign affairs correspondent and Face the Nation moderator Margaret Brennan joins us now. Margaret, thanks for being here.
Good to be here.
So Secretary Blinken used two very important words there, wrongfully detained. Explain the significance of that phrase. And does the fact that Secretary Blinken says he thinks that Gershkovich was wrongfully detained mean that the State Department has officially determined that?
Not officially yet determined it, but certainly headed in that direction fairly quickly. And in fact, the editor at the Wall Street Journal told me on Sunday on Face the Nation that they were very hopeful this would happen much faster than is typical. It often takes months of evidence building to change someone from, just behind bars and examining their case to see, did they commit a crime? Are they actually supposed to be in prison? Or is this a foreign government using them as a pawn? And it is in that category that the State Department is moving, that Evan Gershkovich was taken as a pawn, deliberately targeted, and that his role as a journalist here makes this extra sensitive. The things that Evan has in his favor here, besides what his editors say are absolute innocence, is the fact that he works for a very high-profile news organization. Contrast that with Paul Whelan, who remains behind bars and has for 4 years now in Russia. Not as high profile as WNBA star Brittany Griner, who was traded in that prisoner swap. Evan's name, the fact that he works for a publication like the Wall Street Journal, the fact that journalists like you and I obviously see concern about this, means we will continue to talk about that. And that public pressure is what I believe Secretary Blinken was responding to. It was a Wall Street Journal reporter who asked him that question of how swiftly are you moving there? But they want that determination because it will give the U.S. government more tools, more resources to be able to exert pressure on Russia to try to release him.
Brittany Griner was high profile.
Yes.
It still took 10 months or so to get her back. Is there any realistic hope of some kind of positive resolution for Evan sooner rather than later?
The tough thing with Evan, according to my reporting, is that he is being treated like Paul Whelan. He is not being treated like Brittany Griner. That is to say, Brittany Griner was detained on these charges of carrying in CBD oil and, charged with drug possession. The term espionage, the fact that Vladimir Putin's own spokesperson continues to say this phrase, caught red-handed, indicates what high value is being put on Evan specifically. And the fact that he's being held on espionage means that he's in an FSB prison. He's in an old KGB prison being held by Russian security services. He's not within the standard prison system.
And they're going to want something big
in
exchange for him. And as we saw in the negotiations for Paul Whelan, the U.S. does not necessarily have some big Russian criminal behind bars that the Russians are looking to get back right now.
Well, there are a number of Russians behind bars that the Russian ambassador here in the United States goes and visits. In terms of the high-profile ones that Vladimir Putin wants back, one of them, as we talked about and the White House admitted, had come up in negotiations for Brittany Griner and Paul Whelan, is someone held in Germany who is literally accused of murder on the streets in a major German city, and highly unlikely that Germany would change its mind and release that high-value prisoner in this circumstance. So there are other names floated, nothing that right now is on the table from all the sources that I talked to, even though we have Secretary Blinken saying again today that there's a deal on the table for Paul Whelan, there's no interest on the Russian side in taking that up. So we are waiting to hear from Russia what it is that they are going to ask for in a future prisoner swap, if they will consider it. But at this point, it is such early days that, as the White House said today, U.S. officials aren't even yet being given access to Evan to speak to him, to try to figure out what next steps are, how he's doing. He did, however, get access on Tuesday to a Russian attorney. So that is also allowing for things like, legal permission to be given for the State Department to even say his name. Legally, due to privacy issues, they're forbidden from doing so unless a prisoner signs permission. So they can start little by little. I mean, these are the bureaucratic legal steps that constrain diplomats, but that's what they're working through. When I spoke to a Russian official today, I was told that they really want this to stay in the channel that Presidents Putin and Biden agreed on previously. And that's to say, they don't want to hear Secretary Blinken talking. They want the CIA to be speaking to the FSB, to the security services, for intelligence to be talking to intelligence. That's how the Brittany Griner deal got done. That is most likely where this heads.
Griner deal, though, only got done after they started talking about it in public, saying we floated a deal. We haven't heard anything in response. Margaret Brennan, thank you so